Wife decides to take her husband Dave to a strip club for his birthday. They arrive at the club and the doorman says, "Hey Dave, how you doing?" His wife is puzzled and asks if he's been to this club before. "Oh no," says Dave, "he's on my bowling team." When they are seated, a waitress asks Dave if he'd like his usual and brings over a Budweiser. His wife is becoming increasingly uncomfortable and says, "How did she know that you drink Budweiser?" "She's in the ladies' bowling league, honey. We share lanes with them." A stripper then comes over to their table, throws her arms around Dave and says, "Hi, Davey. Want your usual table dance, big boy?" Dave's wife, now furious, grabs her purse and storms out of the club. Dave follows and spots her getting into a cast. Before she can slam the door, he jumps in beside her. He tries desperately to explain how the stripper must have mistaken him for someone else. But his wife is having none of it. She is screaming at him at the top of her lungs, calling him every name in the book. The cabbie turns his head and says, "Looks like you picked up a real bitch tonight, Dave." It's decided that they weren't going anywhere in life and thought they should go to college to get ahead. The first goes in to see the counselor, who tells him to take math, history, and logic. "What's logic?" the first idiot asks. The professor answers by saying, "Let me give you an example. Do you own a weed eater?" "I sure do." "Then I can assume, using logic, that you have a yard," replied the professor. "That's real good," the professor continues. "Logic will also tell me that since you have a yard, you also own a house." Impressed. Amazing. "And since you own a house, logic dictates that you have a wife." That's Betty May. This is incredible. The Idiot is obviously catching on. "Finally, since you have a wife, logically I can assume that you are heterosexual," said the professor. "You're absolutely right. Why, that's the most fascinating thing I ever heard. I can't wait to take that logic class." The idiot, proud of the new world opening up to him, walks back into the hallway where his friend is still waiting. "So what classes are you taking?" asks the friend. "Math, history, and logic." He replies. "What in tarnation is logic?" asked his friend. "Let me give you an example. Do you own a weed eater?" he asked. "No," his friend replied. "Gay!" A teacher sent her class home with an assignment to have their parents tell them a story with a moral to it. The next morning in class, she asked if anyone would like to share their story. 24 eager hands shot up, and the teacher surveyed the room before choosing a girl in the front. "Okay, Sarah, let's hear your story." "Well," Sarah began, "my family raises chickens, and one time our chickens had laid 6 eggs, but when they hatched, we only got 5 chicks. And what was the moral to that story?" "Don't count your chickens before they hatch," Sarah answered. "Very good," said the teacher. "Who else would like to share their story?" A small boy in the back raised his hand, and the teacher called on him. "My family raises chickens too," said the boy, "but we raise them for their eggs. One day we gathered all of our eggs in a basket and put them in the back of the truck to take them to market. On the way out, truck hit a bump and all of the eggs fell out and broke." "And what was the moral here?" asked the teacher. "Don't put all of your eggs in one basket." "Wonderful," said the teacher. "We have room for one more story. Who has a good one?" She called on another boy. "Okay, Johnny, tell us your story." "My dad told me a story about my Aunt Becky, who was a pilot in Desert Storm. One day she was flying over enemy territory when her plane was shot down, and all she had in the plane was a machine gun, a machete, and a bottle of whiskey. So she drank the whiskey on the way down, so it wouldn't go to waste. And when she landed, there were 100 enemy soldiers waiting for her. She killed the first 80 with the machine gun before she ran out of ammo. Then she killed 10 with the machete before the blade broke off. Then she killed the last 10 with her bare hands." The teacher was appalled and stammered. "Well, what did your father say was the moral of that story?" "Stay the hell away from my Aunt Becky when she's been drinking."